Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about the Twilight Zone Season 4, Episode 6. It is called Death Ship. So full spoilers for the episode as always, and we are back to regular Twilight Zone recordings because there's no new Star Trek on, so you can expect an episode next week. Presumably. There's actually a lot.
Something goes very wrong.
Well, there's a lot of things delaying recordings this weekend. So if there's not one next week, don't worry. They'll be consistent after that. But the episodes are going to be coming fairly regular again. But yes, so this episode is 3 astronauts who are on a spaceship. For some reason, Twilight Zone is obsessed with having humans build classic saucer spaceships, like flying saucers,
or just like reusing props from
that's
the prop department to save money.
That's probably the real reason for it. But it really, part of me was thinking, at least did they think they could get away with this? Because that's what people think about, because this is before the moon landing. It's before a lot of the Apollo missions, maybe not all of them, but certainly most of them. I do wonder if people don't have an idea yet of what actual space travel looks like, so we can just say, the classic flying saucer. That's, most people think of that.
Yeah, in the future year of 1997, this is what spaceships will look like.
Yes. And the post-apocalyptic 1997, this is what spaceships are going to look like. So
humans have overpopulated.
So there's 3 astronauts on a spaceship, and they're looking for planets to take samples from, because Earth has become overpopulated and they need more resources, and they're looking to colonize another planet. So this ship that's out here is just to take some readings and bring them back. But one of the astronauts is kind of excited about the idea of maybe finding life, because aliens have not been found in this universe. So he's kind of excited that there maybe is a reading coming from a planet, and they go down and they discover a ship that looks just like theirs, and in fact it's exactly like theirs because it is their ship. And they find themselves all dead inside the ship. And then the episode from there is about, is this the future? Can we avoid this? Is this some kind of an illusion? What's going on? And that's where we go. The actual answer to all of it is the first thing you probably think of, because it's a twist that Twilight Zone's pulled, I think, a few times at this point. So it's fairly... They probably picked the least interesting answer, to be honest, out of all the possibilities. So that's my first critique of the episode. But Tara's, I could see her salivating. She's raring to go there. What did you think of Death Ship?
I love this episode, and I love the ending. I think you're crazy.
Love the episode. I think it's a mediocre episode.
I understand. There are definitely moments in the episode where I'm like, this is so cheesy. Like, why did they think this was a good idea? But I love the ending. The ending is so classic Twilight Zone. I know it's like so classic that they've done it before, but I just love how dour it is, and how, like, not just dour, but like then it gets even worse. Those are my favorite types of episodes. I can respect it to a point. I will say though, this is one of the episodes this season that I do feel is hurt by the runtime. I think this would have been a better 25-minute episode than a 50-minute episode. I enjoyed it.
There's especially a chunk in the middle where like two of the 3 astronauts start having like I'll call them daydreams or fantasies or whatever you want to call them, but it starts getting into like them seeing things and thinking they're somewhere else. And I don't necessarily think the idea of them being there to sort of make the point is bad, but like it really could have been a couple of quick lines and a couple of flashes and then sort of snap out of it. Instead, each one of them gets like a good like 4 or 5 minutes to like wander and discover where they are and what's going on, and like, what is this?
Well, yeah, I think because of that, it feels less like a daydream. Because at first you're just like, are they dreaming? Are they in some sort of parallel universe or something?
I just said that for lack of a better term, because it's got that kind of mood.
But because they have time to like walk around and like talk to people and really like search for someone and hold on to them, like, oh, this is very real, whatever they're going through. This is a real experience. So what does it mean?
I think, fundamentally, the episode's about accepting that they're already dead, right? And that's kind of what the ultimate reveal is. And the episode hints at that throughout. The first guy who hallucinates that he's somewhere else, or is somewhere else, it's like he's back on Earth and he goes to find his wife, but all he finds is like a veil that you'd wear at a funeral, and there's like a letter saying that he's dead. And then the other guy, he sees his wife and daughter when he like appears back on Earth, but then we find out afterwards that his wife and daughter already died in like an accident or something like years ago. And it's like, oh, the reason why he saw his wife and kid is because they're already dead. So they exist on this death plane of existence, if you will. I think my issue with it is not that the ideas are bad per se. It's more just, it's done kind of similar ideas before. The twist kind of feels just kind of like, oh, we've done similar things before, but also just that I think just in general, they're already dead is just maybe something I'm personally a little bit bored of now, because you know there's a lot of famous examples of this at this point, and obviously not all of them, most of them even were after this in terms of the timeline, but it doesn't, you know, it's not like a standout version of this type of story. Some of it's a little bit clunky, some of it's a little bit heavy-handed. I was far more interested when it felt like, oh, maybe it'll turn out that it was just like a sort of time loop thing where they're seeing the future and, you know, their own bickering when they eventually do decide to like grow a pair and like try and leave, because they're worried that if they take off that they're going to just like crash and die, because that's what it looks like happened. And the captain saying, no, we can't leave, you know, because, you know, we're not dead, and if as long as we don't take off, then that can't happen. But then when they do take off and everything's fine, the captain then says, well, now that we know that that's not what's going to happen, there's nothing dangerous about going back down there, is there? We can go back and investigate. And they start fighting, and you know the ship starts tipping, and they're all kind of like, you know, falling over, and they think they're going to die. And I was like, I almost think I'd have enjoyed it more if it just ended there with them all dying in a crash, rather than this is them in some sort of purgatory not accepting they're dead, or specifically the captain not accepting he's dead, and kind of like almost like forcing their ghosts to not move on effectively. So they're just repeating this over and over again, which I did like that part. I did like at the end Rod comes in and says, yeah, they're repeating this, and it sort of shows you a montage of them doing it again and then again, and it's like, okay, this is actually really dire and kind of like, you know, traumatic. And it's not that it doesn't have something to say. It's not like the idea that someone can't accept something. You know, the captain's also the one who just doesn't believe that aliens are possible, and he's adamant that there's nothing like that, and he's constantly telling them to shut up about things. So yeah, you know, like I get what it's doing, but I felt it kind of just slog in the middle as it was doing this daydream stuff, and I was like, see if this was cut down to 25 minutes, I think I would like it a lot more.
I think it could definitely work as a 25-minute episode, but I don't mind the length of it. I think that this 50-minute or whatever, I think works just fine as well, because I do like each of the characters and how much we get to learn about them and their tragic stories. Like everyone has one, except for Klugman. He's the only one, the captain. He's the only one that doesn't seem to have anything that he's holding on to back home, and he's the one who's taking the mission like the most serious and trying to keep everybody focused on survival and getting off. And I actually, at the last like bit of the episode where they're trying to escape the planet, because that's what they have to do. There's sort of a lot of episodes it reminds me of, like it's definitely Hitchhiker vibes, Nick of Time, and I don't know, there's another one I was thinking of, but yeah. So, and like Klugman's character not really having anything to hold on to, I thought was a bit lacking in the episode. But then like the last like 10 minutes of it, like, oh no, he's just holding on to this lie. And like the fact that he knew, like basically when the audience knows the twist, they're like, oh, they're already dead. Like he knew right from the beginning, but he's just holding on to the fact that it can't be true. Like he just doesn't want to believe it, doesn't want to accept it. And that's what the whole episode ends up being about. And I really like that part of the twist more than anything else. And then, of course, like the direness of the consequence of that, of just being stuck in this torture loop of dying over and over and over again. I thought that was pretty dark, pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of this, actually. In concept, the idea that he kind of knows deep down that they're dead the whole time from the start, maybe even before the other two do, and he's just like, you know, denying it. He's just clinging to this lie, this idea that, because at one point they think, oh, he's happy to stay here and not leave for safety because he's got no one to go back to, but then by the end it's more like, No, he has no reason to accept death and move on because he's got no one to wait for. You know, there's no one waiting for him in the afterlife to like join up with him. So he's kind of. Yeah. So it's like, okay, there's some interesting ideas here. I think there's probably a better version of this story that's. I guess it kind of feels like it's pulling its punches a little bit, and it feels like it's going through some typical Twilight Zone-y sort of setup and tropes, rather than pushing the envelope with like the writing of the character, or how he. Not that the acting is bad, like he's a good actor. Like Kligman's, 12 Angry Men. Like, I'm not critiquing his acting ability, but I do wonder if the script could have went a bit further and like really kind of. Like, if we had gotten early on that he's, like, denying something and it's more about him accepting something that's painfully true, I think that would have been interesting. I think the episode did a reasonable job of setting up that it could be a few different things that I was just... Partly because I'm just bored of this type of ending, that I was just, like, I was more excited about every other single, like, thing, which is, it's a time loop thing, like, and I've seen other examples of that, of course. There's kind of an Interstellar kind of idea at one point where, they said when we come back, it might be a year later, or, like, more time might have passed, or less time might have passed, for, and stuff. They kind of bring up some of these ideas, so I appreciate that they're actually kind of like provoking the audience with like, here's a few different sci-fi concepts that could be leading to this. It's not just, at one point he's convinced that there's aliens here now, like, something that he was adamant couldn't exist earlier. He's like, there's aliens and this is all some like elaborate defense system to make us scared, so we'll leave and like never touch their planet.
Anything but the obvious, because the obvious is too tough,
which makes him kind of a dick that he decides to go back down. He's like, we're going to take what we want. Yeah, we're going to go back down and harvest them as much as we want.
And it's like, they're done. Like they've escaped. Like there's really is no reason for them to go back down on the planet, except for his own obsession with the truth.
So I'm going to spoil kind of the ending of a movie from the 60s here. So I'm warning you in case you really care and you want to like head out before I spoil this.
Do I get an option, or
you've seen them? You know the movie. You're fine. I know you've seen it.
Okay.
But I think Carnival of Souls is a much better version of this story.
Oh. No, I don't like that movie.
I know you don't like it, but I love that. I think that movie's a fantastic little film. And
yeah,
I
think most people are on your side with that, but I saw it first with riff tracks, so it's been ruined.
I think it's a wonderfully atmospheric little film about someone, coming to grips with the fact that they're dead, but it's far more stylized in this. And obviously Twilight Zone, it's a TV show, they've got a budget. But you did
appreciate the stylized chairs that they're all sitting in? The most ergonomic chair I've ever seen, but so impractical.
They look very, very, like, see when they were like sitting on, they started to like flop, so it was like really cheap looking, like just as soon as they touched them.
That's another thing I love about the episode, though, is how cheap the sets are, and even like when everything's like tilting to the left and all the actors are trying to pretend that they're all being thrown, or even being like the G-force and they're just smushing their faces in. I thought was so funny.
Like, I think Carnival of Souls is, a movie that's told largely through a lot of style and direction, and this is kind of lacking here. In fact, I was kind of sad that they did something here they couldn't actually do, and it annoyed me, because so when they find the bodies of themselves, and like the first guy goes up and he sort of turns the body over and it's himself, they do a shot which obviously what they wanted to do was the camera looking at the dead person's face and then, go up and look at the one who's looking at him, right? But and I was thinking even before they did it, okay, I get that this is going to be them. It would make sense that you can't do much of it, but you would want at least one good like trick visual effects shot where you have two of their heads at the same time, right, in the same shot. But what they did here is when the camera, tilts up, there's a cut. And it's not like a hidden cut. It's like really obviously a cut.
They tried their best. It was quick.
But like, I think if you're going to do that, like make the scene darker. Like the reason, because a lot of movies do this, where they'll connect like two shots and make them look like one continuous shot. And the way you usually do it is you'll pan quickly or tilt quickly through like dark, like usually ideally black, just pure black if you can. If you're it's like a corner of the dark room that you can use as like the cut part, so that you just can't tell as a cut. But this had a really obvious cut in it, and I'm not like, I know it's it's a 60s TV show. They're limited in what they can do at the time. I'm not even sure like how much movies could do this kind of like trickery at the time. But this is the sort of thing where I would rather they just didn't do it and pretend that they could do it, than do it like this and it be sticking out to me like a sore thumb. Like, I would much rather just do the shot of the dead one, cut to a shot of like the reaction of the captain, and then cut to the shot of the one looking down at him. And yeah, it's not as fancy, it's maybe not as convincing, but it wouldn't feel like, oh, there was like a problem there. But the way they did it, I was like, oh no, I saw you trying to hide a cut, and it just looked bad.
I actually thought when both of the same actor is on screen together, I thought those looked pretty good though, because I was looking for a line of demarcation, but it wasn't really there, where you could see like, it's clearly like two scenes spliced together so that you can have both.
Wait, what are you talking about? There was no scenes like that.
Yeah, there were. There are scenes where I think it was Mike who was just like staring at his dead body, but like you could see both of the faces.
Oh, okay, so yeah, there was just staying still, right? There was no movement or anything like
that. Maybe there's some acting, like they didn't reach out and touch them or anything
like
that. I mean, they're very much on either side of the screen.
I mean the camera moving. There was no camera movement.
No.
Yeah. But they're relatively stationary in their own parts of the screen. They're not,
Yeah, but like even in some so there's like a Trek episode where you see like two Rikers at the same time, and you're like, well, I know it looks fine, but like you could see which one was spliced into the other, or like some sort of line of demarcation. But like in this one, I didn't really see anything. Well,
I mean, yeah, but they should have just done that then. Like the shot where they moved the camera and tried to hide a cut. Like it was it's like they've done it before where they've put in like a freeze frame to try and pretend that someone's still, and it's like, I can tell it's a freeze frame. Like, yeah, it's really obvious.
But we've also seen when people are acting still, and we can still see them breathing or blinking.
Oh no, of course. Like there's like obviously pros and cons to each thing, but the freeze framing feels more disingenuous to me, because like I'm like, there's the grain stopped moving. I can tell this is freeze frame. Stop it.
Yeah, totally. Especially when it's like an outdoor shot and there's like no wind.
Yeah, like I would much rather like seeing them like struggle to stay still than a freeze frame. Maybe it's a personal preference. Maybe it's not. Whatever. I don't know. But I don't want to be too harsh on it. But like, I think because the show by and large like makes the most of what money they have to make these episodes, and I have been impressed with like, because sometimes having limitations and not being able to do overly fancy things forces you to be creative, and it forces you to create the atmosphere out of simpler tricks and thinking maybe a little outside the box, or sticking to some tried and true methods or whatever. And I think the show by and large, at least the good episodes, tend to do that. So when I'm complaining about this moment where the cuts try to be hidden but it's really obvious, like, I'm pointing it out because it's not up to the show's usual standards. I'm comparing it to itself. I'm comparing it to what they've established in 3+ seasons at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I didn't notice it as much as you. Like, I noticed the shot, obviously, when it just quickly pans to. Did I use the right terminology?
It was more of a. Technically it was diagonal, so I mean, you could argue it's a bit of both.
I swear you said pan earlier, so I'm trying to be consistent.
When I was talking about that moment, I said tilt. I said pan as an example when I was talking about how you could do it.
Okay, all right. So when the shot tilts up and we go from the same actor to the same actor, I actually thought, oh, that looked pretty decent for, the time, for what they were capable of doing with the equipment that they had. Maybe this wasn't something that was done. I don't know if there was a lot of science fiction shows before this where you would have an opportunity to even do that with a character where they would be talking to themselves.
I put in that disclaimer about what I was comparing it to make it clear that I'm not saying that Twilight Zone should have like modern day like practical effects or CG effects or anything like that, because the amount of comments we got in season 2 when I complained about the 6 episodes that look like shit and like, oh, it's an old show, like what can you expect? And I'm like, the rest of it looks amazing because it was shot on film and it's been remastered.
The HD Twilight Zones have really been great.
They're great. But those 6 episodes that were shot in tape, and there was comments in almost all of them saying, oh, what can you expect from it? Like, literally the very next episode looked amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think we brought it up every single time that it happened, when it was the videotape ones, the quality of them cannot be HD, and all the rest of them we've been so spoiled because they look amazing.
Yeah. That's why, because I wasn't sure if you were Or I don't think you were convinced that you were going to notice it when I told you about it, but then as soon as we watched one, you were like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Very clear difference.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're thinking, oh, Peter's just been a bit of a, a
stickler.
A snooty, film snobby, like technical asshole, right? That's what you're thinking.
Well, I mean,
a little bit.
You might be projecting a little bit there, but there might be some truth to that.
What you projecting? I'm saying it about me. It's not even
exactly.
It's only projecting if I'm putting it onto you.
Well, yeah, because you think. I thought you were saying like, oh, you think this about me, don't you?
Oh, sure. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, I suppose. Okay, I suppose it's technically projection in that sense, but that's what you're thinking. So then you watch more of them. You're like, you know what? Okay, all right.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those were still the best episodes. Like we loved 22. I think Static was one of those episodes. I loved that one with the radio.
One or two of them were good. Like, there was a couple of them that weren't that great because the one with the it was like the daughter was a robot. That was a bit. Yeah,
that one was okay. I mean, I didn't mind it.
Nah,
there really haven't been too many stinkers in this show, or in the series overall. I thought there would be more, but generally, they're all pretty good. And then you get the great ones sprinkled throughout.
No, I think there's been some mediocre. I mean, stinker's a bit of a harsh term. I don't know.
Well, yeah, Fever was pretty bad.
As someone who watched all of Tales from the Crypt, which had stinkers. It had good episodes, but it also had stinkers. Twilight Zone is a much better average by far. But there's definitely some middling episodes that I don't love as much. And they're definitely ones that, on a rewatch, I could probably, make a list of episodes that I could skip. And, that's okay. Because it's the type of show it is. But, yeah. And I think this one's kind of upper middling, if that makes sense, where I like the concept well enough. I think the actors are fine, but some of the execution and I think some of the pacing and just kind of padding out the story they've got here, which I don't think they need 50 minutes. I think the realization, there's so much time of them when they first land. It's okay, let's go over to the ship, and they have a whole conversation talking effectively about nothing as they're on their way over to the other ship, just to make it a longer.
They're talking about survival.
What
do you mean nothing?
Well, they talk about, that looks like one of our ships. Yeah, and then the captain's like, no, it can't be. That's not true. And I'm like, you're like Dyatlov in Chernobyl right now. It's your ship. It's identical to your ship. And he's like, oh, that could be a standardized engine type across different
Reactor
species.
4 has to be there.
You didn't see graphite. It wasn't there. All that.
What a great show. Yeah.
Shenanigans. So there was lots of little things where I felt that there was padding here or there. I felt it being stretched out, which I think made the twist being underwhelming more annoying to me, or where it went with its story, because giving me more time to stop and think about it and be like, are we really slowly going to drag this out to get to the point we all know it's getting to? If it was shorter, I think that would be less of an issue, because it would be boom, 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 boom.
I was considering alternatives to what it could be. Is it aliens, or is this I was getting Nick of Time vibes where the planet wasn't going to let them leave because they they don't want humans to colonize there or something like that.
You were thinking almost supernatural Solaris style planet, the planet's got a mind of its own, or
there are aliens there that are controlling this or something. It's Twilight Zone, so anything could be possible. The obvious thing at first seemed like death, but because it was a science fiction episode with rocket ships and space travel, I was thinking, well, maybe they're all going to do more of a science fiction ending rather than this purgatory thing. But or the supernatural, they were dead the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got much more to add. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to give that ship?
I thought the guy who played Mike looked a lot like Charles Rocket, and a little bit of Fassbender, spliced together.
Sure.
That was kind of a fun thing. I like playing that game. Who do you look like? What two celebrities can I merge together?
In about 30 years, John Hammond. Me, that is not you, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you were talking about another actor in the episode.
No. But there you go.
You got a little bit of, I think it's Richard Attenborough, right? David is the botanist or the biologist.
Why have you asked me? I'm just doubting myself which one's which because you've asked me now.
I think Richard's the actor.
Just say Mr.
We've
Attenborough.
gone through this so many times.
Mr. Attenborough. Let's just say that. It's fine.
But there's two famous ones.
Aye, they're brothers. That's why they're famous.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
That's not why they're famous, but you know what I mean.
They're the original Kardashians.
They're the original brothers. Before them, brothers didn't exist.
Which was famous for being a family.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I legit didn't know that until was a board now that commented that. That was really cool.
Yeah. So next time on the Twilight Zone, we have an episode called Jess Bell. Rod at the end tells us about it. It's a witch episode.
Oh yeah.
And there's some clips. Here's the description on IMDb. Jess Bell can't bear to lose the object of her passion to a local rich girl, so she turns to the local witch for aid. The results bring unexpected and tragic consequences. Like, I'll maybe be a downer, but I think this looks like shit.
Oh. Really?
Yeah, I was not feeling the clips of this one at all. I was like, oh no, a witch. Oh no. I mean, maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll surprise me, but...
Well, I mean, although I think Twilight Zone is remembered for being a horror show at times, because of the twist endings can be very horrific, I don't think they particularly do horror well on the show. Like, they have had some hits, but they've had a lot of misses with horror. Yeah,
Department Store episode in season 1 was a good little horror episode. I like that one.
Yeah, the mannequin one.
Yeah, that
was good.
Yeah, it's good. They've had some good moments of horror, but probably not when it's super focused on the horror necessarily.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yeah, I saw a lot of like character stereotypes and stuff that I'm not super into, and so I don't know. Hopefully it's better than I think it's going to be. But
the actor I saw looked very familiar. I wonder if he's been in another episode.
May have done.
Yeah.
Obviously Klugman in this one was the trumpet player back in like season 1 or 2, whenever that episode was.
Yeah, and he was in like I think he was in the pool one, the pool episode.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I think he was.
Pool hall. I can't remember. I thought he was in the Mighty Casey, but I was wrong about that because I looked it up. And he's still got one more. He's in 4 episodes.
Oh, way to go.
He might hold the record. I'm not sure.
He might. But that's what's coming next time on the Twilight Zone. Let us know what you thought of Death Ship in the comments below. You can like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, and of course you can support the channel by hitting the super thanks button below the video, or of course you can do it elsewhere, can't you, Tara?
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MouthFuzzTV, where you can donate and get some bonus material. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get to vote on what we watch once a month and get early access. Dang it. You just changed it, so now I don't. I don't have my script anymore.
They still get early access.
Why don't you do it?
They still get early access to Twilight Zone at $5 tier.
I was about to say that.
Well, yeah, but you just said something that was false advertising.
All right, well, you close it then. Go ahead, take over.
I don't know what to close. What? Like, is there anything left?
I don't know. Did we miss anything else?
I mean, if you enjoy our camaraderie, you can get the sci-fi movie podcast that we do together called The Atomic Cinema Experiment. There's bonus episodes on Patreon, but you can get the regular show over at Male Fuzz Movies, so go check that out. Or on your audio podcast app of choice, should you wish to seek it out there.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I'd buy that for however much it costs.
Let us know what you think of the episode, all that jazz. I said that before, but Tara's thrown me off here because that was a complete train wreck. Thank you. We'll see you again. Keep watching TV in the Twilight Zone.